Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Splat number 1 through 3. This was a humor anthology comic published between 1986 and 1987, and it came out from Mad Dog Graphics, which was this great little comic company in the 80s. I don't think anything they did really made a splash in the industry. They only lasted maybe a couple of years, but they had some great titles, and the main reason was because it was founded by Jan Strnad, the great comic writer, and he seemed to have a pretty good eye. I think they did Eddie Current from Ted McKeever. That was probably their breakout title, if you could call it that, and they did a adaptation of Harlan Ellison's A Boy and His Dog with Richard Corbin art, and I think Jan Strnad did the adaptation. So they had some really weird, great stuff. And even though it didn't seem like they had a lot of money, but yeah, Splat, I bought these off the stands. I love this comic. I bet they sold like 1,000 copies each. I don't think they sold very well, but they've got a lot of great creators in them. And I like how, as an editor, Tom Mason from the Comics Journal, or at least Fantagraphics, he edited these. And he just gets all these different artists, some from mini comics, some old underground guys, just all these different cartoonists. Hunt Emerson, from England, early Peter Bagge stuff. But we'll see. It's an interesting pool of talent in these comics. Number 1 starts off with this beautiful Ken Macklin cover. Man, I still love this cover. Just the way he draws these mountains, this beautiful blue, this full painted cover. Really nice. We have an inside front cover called Space Madness, and this is by Joe Spooner, who I have never seen this guy. I don't know who he is. It's a pretty funny gag, kind of a sci-fi gag, and we can see that almost Fantagraphic style, layout on this contents page here. Yeah, Tom Mason's also the designer. He designed a lot of the kind of earlier Fantagraphic stuff. This first story is called Grizzly Land. Story by Jim Van Hise, art by Ron Wilbur. Both of these guys did tons of stuff for Rocket's Blast Comic Collector, the late 60s, early 70s fanzine, and other fanzines. And man, Ron Wilbur's got some chops. I'm surprised. And I looked up his internet page, and other than the fan stuff he did all this like kind of goofy black and white boom era comics, like for Critters, Fantagraphics, Funny Animal Comic, and just all these little dinky companies. But he's so good. It's so weird that he never did more, didn't get more acclaim. So this is I guess this was supposed to be the first episode in these Grizzly Land stories. This one's called The Tri-Rail Cruiser. And we see this all-American family, and they're getting on this monorail at Grizzly Land. And it's kind of a tired gag, but Grizzly Land's this crazy parody of Disneyland, but everything's kind of gnarly. Like this guy's got a baseball bat and he's just whacking customers. There's very Kurtzman Elder mad stuff going on in this comic. The layouts, so much of this is taken from that playbook. But it's really got this unhinged quality to it. It seems like a comic that would be in National Lampoon. Just those really weird ones that aren't necessarily that funny, but they're just really bizarre. So as they're getting on the monorail, this other weirder family pushes their way on. And they've got this crazy mutant baby who's just screaming. Kind of looks like this little mongoloid kid. So the all-American family, they're except for the husband, the father, they're just looking out the window. They don't really notice this weird family. But the father, Charles, is just fascinated by this strange child. It's kind of, it's freaking him out. So as they pass the parking lot, the mother of the weird family says, hey, let's see if we can spot our car. Here's a very Kurtzman elder-like exchange, I meant to say. Well, why didn't you say so? Yeah, why didn't you? Just look all right. And the baby's puking. So Charles, the father of the normal family, is really starting to, he's sweating. He's like, he just needs some air. The windows won't open. Just this mutant child is freaking him out. Man, look at the chops on this guy. Such a great cartoonist. And he's got just enough roughness where he's not such a great cartoonist to give it that really weirdness. You know how like Graham Ingalls was like that? Some of his faces were just so off in a way, but it made it even creepier. So this is where it gets really weird. So the mother of the weird family sees their car, and a device in the roof of the cruiser car picks up the thought and transfers it into the center of the parking lot where a receiver picks it up. And then these two steel doors open in the ground, and this giant robot tank comes out. And it's heading right for the car. And nobody's paying attention except for the mother. She's like, it's heading right for our car. And the tank totally just demolishes their vehicle. For some reason, this makes Charles just giggle hysterically. It's like he's having a nervous breakdown. And he's just so amused by their predicament. So finally, the cruiser gets to the end of the line. And the father of the normal family, Charles, comes out whistling. He's all happy. And then it says, but there are no bright songs for the weird, shell-shocked family with the mutant child. And an employee of the park informs them that since your car has just been destroyed, you'll now become permanent residents of Grizzly Land. You mustn't try to leave the park grounds, and suitable employment will be provided to you all. And the father of this family says, I'm going to have to work. And he freaks out. And the mutant baby is still screaming as the normal family walk away happily. So it says the end of this part. So I guess these were going to continue, and I wish they did. So bizarre and twisted, really weird. Man, that's some good stuff. The gem in the rough. Here we have some really early Peter Bagge. And this is actually a gag that I think The Simpsons kind of stole. One of those early Simpsons when they were on Tracy Ullman. This little kid is like, I'm going to be a cowboy when I grow up. And the father's just like, that's absurd, son. There's no cowboys left except in rodeos. And they all make fools of themselves. So then the kid says, I'm going to be an astronaut. And he says, don't count on it, son. You have to be a college graduate to be an astronaut. You'll be lucky if you'll pass the 3rd grade. And then he says, hey, Dad, would you help me finish this model ship? I'm almost done, but I could use your help. He says, I don't know, son. That looks way too advanced for you. In fact, if I were you, I wouldn't bother doing it, trying to do anything. At the last panel, he joins his father just staring at the idiot box. Oh, sorry, I should have lifted that up, huh? And he's gonna... all of his dreams have been crushed. And every issue of Splat had an interview with a famous cartoonist. And this one is Sam Gross, the darling of National Lampoon. He was his probably the most famous cartoon he's ever done. Try our frog legs. And this little poor frog with no legs is on one of those little wheelie carts. making the customers feel guilty. Pretty good interview. This one's so weird. Please help me. I am blind and I think I may be black. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people won't think that's funny anymore, but it makes me laugh. So it's nice just to get to see some of these cartoons. The interviews are pretty well done. This is Filling Space by Glenn Dakin. And these apparently were like supposed to be like daily strips. I don't know if they appeared in some English newspaper or he made these for that purpose, because each strip is just a little gag. They're not that funny. They're all kind of based around this science fiction premise. They're on these guys in a starship. I like Glenn Dakin's more like philosophical strips where he's kind of like, obviously, you're taking a page from George Harriman. This shows none of that. This is just not very good. Even the cartooning is just kind of, not that appealing to me at least. Oh, but here we got J.R. Williams. These are like kind of weird. They're called Growing Up Weird. And this is the same deal where I don't know if he was trying to get these syndicated in alternative newspapers. Maybe they were. But they're kind of, I don't know. It's just not the best J.R. Williams. They're just kind of gags about being a kid. And it kind of reminds me, once again, of The Simpsons. This reminds me of like the early Simpsons with just the Bart Simpson humor of just like what a brat he is to Lisa and stuff like that. They're kind of, some of them are kind of funny, but just not that funny. It's almost like J.R. Williams is toning it down for a mass audience. Here we have Steve Willis, best known for Morty the dog. God, that thing, there must be hundreds of pages of that comic. That guy cranked them out in mini comics, all kinds of comics for decades. And we see these characters, shh, quiet, that's Morty the dog. He's a symbol of deep meaning, thinking deep thinks. And we see what he's thinking. It's the Three Stooges opening. Hello, 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 hello. I wonder what great things are dwelling in that canine cranium right now. That's pretty funny. This next one is amazing. I've seen Phil Elliott before. I have to double check something, guys. I just want to make sure that there's no writer for this. Yeah, Phil Elliott wrote and drew this. It's called Daniel and Maysack. And look at this great, like, clear line style art. All this, like, it's some kind of semi-sci-fi world that they live in. But basically, it's just this surreal world. I don't know, some of these fashions and stuff. Really fun designs and weirdness going on here. But at the core of the story, it's kind of just this emotional thing between these two friends. Maysack is, I guess he's leaving town to get a better job. And Daniel is just like, why do you have to go? And Maysack's pretty casual about the whole thing. He's like, all things must come to an end. It's been nice being your buddy, but I gotta go get this job. And Daniel says, I hate you, Maysack. And he has this kind of little daydream where he screams it so loud, you know, kind of fragments Maysack into these pieces. It's just a pretty cool panel right there. And then he stacks them back up. And he says, I'm not letting your blasted ambitions interfere with our friendship. But then he wakes up from his daydream. He's just playing with these blocks at a bar. And Maysack gets him a beeper message. So he has to make a phone call. So he goes to this bar. Daniel proceeds to get blotto. And he picks Daniel out of the chair. And Daniel says, why must it end like this, Maysack? And then all of a sudden, it's like Alex Toth takes over the strip. I guess he falls over or something. Bach, this gray panel, and we see his point of view. He's seen double vision of Masak's face. Really, I love this string of panels right here. That's some really neat design work. And then, of course, Daniel wakes up in a hospital. And then Masak comes in, and he says, "Some friend you are, you left me for dead in the middle of the street. I don't care if I ever see you again." And Masak says, "I was bleeped. And anyway, you only grazed your nut on a passing wheel." "Oh, I'm sorry, a car must have hit him. That's what happened." And then he says, "As it happens, I'm not going away after all. I've decided to stay here for the time being. See you around." This is a fun, nutty story. But at its core, it's got this kind of like kind of human thing going on. This next comic is drawn by Ron Herbst, and the lyrics are they're like parodies of Talking Head songs, but it's recasting Ronald Reagan as David Byrne. So it's doing all the Talking Head songs, but they changed the words, Weird Al Yankovic style. Let me, I have to pull this up to read this. "You might find yourself in a big white house with an ugly old wife. You may ask yourself, well, how did I become president?" It's I guess a kind of a cute idea, but yeah, this guy's not a very good artist. I guess it kind of works for this strip, though. This is Tales of the 47th Empire, J.P. Morgan. I think this guy normally goes by John Morgan. At least that's what it said on the internet. We see the ship crash, and these kind of synthezoid robot types put a rescue beacon out. And one of them says, "I hope the rescue ship comes soon. As you know, Zolan, we are cyborgs, and unless we are rescued within 48 hours, our synthetic lung tissues will collapse for lack of the necessary cleansing equipment, which was destroyed when our starship crashed." So then he kind of fades off because the other guy's looking at him angrily. He's like, "I know that, you fool. Why are you telling me stuff I already know? To inform the reader." "You idiot, you just ruined the story. We might," and so the other one's just ranting. He's like, "You're sorry. We might as well end the story right now." This is a blank panel. I kind of like that. Pretty cute little idea. I really like his art too. This is like really nice cartoony. Very spare, but kind of interesting. We get a nice Hunt Emerson one-pager, Donald Dogfly. I think he's in most of these issues. Man, God, just Hunt Emerson speaks for itself. His art, his cartooning, it's just so perfect. We see Donald walking down the street, this scary dog. He's not that scary. He's actually kind of cute, but he's an angry dog. Comes out barking at Donald. So Donald has an idea. He gets this boom box. The next time the dog barks really loudly at him, he records him and then plays it back at the dog super loud. But then that just sets off the dog even more. And the boombox runs off like a scared dog going, "How-wee, whipper, whipper." And the dog is just sitting there cracking up. Oh, that's fun. And this last one is script by John Sayers, art by George Kochel. And I think I saw this guy in the 80s and other stuff. Maybe he did mini comics. I can't remember. But this is I don't think it has a title, but it's basically this reporter. She's saying, John Quincy Adams, Zelda Fitzgerald, and Jimmy Hoffa, what do these people have in common? They're all dead. It's some weird talk show. An awful lot of people are dead. In fact, scientists tell us 1/2 of all the people who have ever lived are dead. Interesting cartooning style, that George Cajero. So here we got Splat number 2 with a cover by Peter Laird of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fame. So this is probably right when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were like taken off. I guess he still had time to draw a cover for this humor magazine. Pretty nice. So here we got Joe Spooner, White Collar Crime on the inside front cover. Kind of just a goofy gag. So we start off with Mark Kemple's Cartoon Man and Cartoon Man's Best Friend. I think we've seen Cartoon Man already in some anthologies. He was in Eclipse Monthly or Eclipse Magazine. He popped up in all these different anthologies. And they're all like Cartoon Man shtick is that he just plays with the mechanics of comic strip storytelling. Like he's a character who knows he's in a comic strip, basically. Almost like Ambush Bug, you know? And we see this cartoony dude. And he comes upon this dog. And they get in an argument. And the dog says, there's one kind of humor that only us animals can get away with. And just what is that, dog? Well, I'll show you, you jerk. And then we see Cartoon Man, the main character. He's walking, it says, this way to Punchline. And we see that other dude running away as fast as he can. And then Cartoon Man smells something funny. And he steps right into some dog shit, which they felt the need to censor the pile of dog shit. It says the end, but then we see an epilogue. Cartoon Man's writing it himself because he doesn't want the story to end. He wants a little justice. So he's like, tells the dog, he says, I want you to clean up that mess on the last page and get the fuck out of here. And he starts ranting. It's my strip. I'm in control. I'm responsible. The buck stops here. And then the omniscient artist scribbles them out and changes the name of the strip to Mangy Mutt and Measly Mouse. These are always kind of fun, these Cartoon Mans. I wish there was more of them. This next one is by a guy named R.A. Ator. And it's called Steroids, The Bubble. And there's just a silent little strip, almost like a little animated cartoon. We see this guy pop a steroid. Muscles start popping up on his body. But then pretty soon they start popping again, and and he starts deflating. All of his muscles pop away. And he ends how he started, skinny and scrawny. Just nice cartooning. Very simple. But yeah, I mean, this guy knows anatomy. I don't know whatever happened to him. This is interesting. The Amazons by Dennis Fujitake. And this is from 78. So this is some old reprint, obviously formatted for a magazine-size format. Magazine-size comic. And very Vaughn Baudet inspired. We see these two weird lizard guys riding these pterodactyls around. And they're arguing about what's the better part of the Amazon to eat, boobs or buns, Amazon breast broiled or buttocks barbecue. And then they see an Amazon. And one of them just runs off. And she totally gets the other guy, hog ties him. And she says, fresh meat. So just desserts for that guy. We got Dead End Job by Eddie Campbell here. This is some very early Eddie Campbell. This could be from his mini comics. I don't even know where this was originally from. And this is kind of like an autobiography strip. Him just talking about his crappy jobs he had when he was a young man. Various incidents, how he got fired at some of them. But of course, it's better than most autobio, because Eddie Campbell would always add, I don't know, a certain panache to his autobio comics. So he does stuff like this, he really fucks up at his work. And, then it almost becomes a fantasy sequence. He falls through the floor of this dockside restaurant into the ocean, and these sharks kill him. Some more early Peter Bagge characters from everyday life. This is very much like a Mad article. Just talking about these random weirdos. Cousin Estelle, sexually aroused by the sight of crude iron ore. Some pretty great cartoony here. Very exaggerated, like early Peter Bagge always was. We have a interview with P.S. Mueller, the great cartoonist. Frosty the Vampire. The Beast of the Apocalypso. He's one of those guys that just draws funny to me. Once again, another good interview. They ask a lot of good questions. They have some reprints of Alan Moore's Maxwell the Magic Cat. This was a comic strip that ran in some, normal newspaper in Northern England in 1979. Well, I think it ran all the way up to 86. So there's a lot of these out there. Kind of disappointing. The cartooning's not that great. I've actually seen some of Alan Moore's early stuff from the late 70s when he was a writer / artist. The stuff he did for like Sounds and Enemy. And his art was really good. He had some chops. But as far as like a kind of a funny animal artist, not so good. It's also kind of disappointing because the writing isn't very good. A lot of these could be Garfield jokes. Because Maxwell is kind of like a sardonic, sarcastic cat. And most of the gags are just kind of like, oh yeah, that could be on the Sunday page now. He does some like fun ones, like we see this one here. And then Maxwell says, perhaps someone could try giving the top left corner of the page a good swift thump. I don't know if this would make sense to anyone under 40 years old, but TVs used to do that. It would just start going up and down, and sometimes the only thing that would solve it was a good smack on the side of the TV. But other than that, yeah, not so great. Here we have another George Kochel drawn strip, this time written by Brian McDonnell. And this one's, we see a cartoonist, he's got deadlines. So he goes to a swipe file, and it's actually full of these little super characters. And he grabs a Batman, puts glue on him, smacks him down on the artboard, and then takes a big heavy book. And, it's the World Encyclopedia of Comics by Maurice Horn. I have that. It is a very fucking huge fat book. And he smashes him down, so that makes his art. We got another Phil Elliott drawn strip this time. He doesn't write it. It's written by Jay Thackeray. I assume an English guy. I don't know. I've never heard of him. This one's called Danger Dan. True Life Heroes. Featuring Danger Dan. And this kid is saying, who is Danger Dan, Dad? Because they see the sign. And the father says he was the greatest showman of the last decade. He would perform death-defying stunts using silk screens. This totally reads like Jay Thackeray, the writer, probably worked in silk screening. So this is almost like an inside joke. So as you can see, very different style from the last story, from that Daniel and Masak story. A lot more like a, less clear line, trying to add more texture and detail and shading. I don't like it as much. He's in a movie called The Silkscreen That Ate London. I don't even quite get this gag. And then he becomes a stuntman, and he's going to jump this double-decker bus through 4 silk screens. But a jealous rival of his exchanges the last silk screen with elastic. So he drives in, crashes into it, and it bounces him back across the arena. And the kid says, "Whatever became of Dan, Dad?" "I really don't know, son." And the camera pulls back, and we see Dan drawing a silk screening the comics page that we have just read. Comics pages that we have just read. So I don't know. Whatever. It's kind of interesting. We got some more of those growing up weird strips by J.R. Williams. Once again, just more kind of like kind of a nostalgic trip thing. Talking about watching dumb TV shows when you're a kid. And luckily we get another Donald Dogfly by Hunt Emerson. And we see Donald walking down the street. He sees these vegetables running down the street in a panic. And then he sees why. Because the Veg Nosh vegetarian restaurant truck is hunting them down with this butterfly net. So he has a thought balloon. He says, they're going to make vegetable stew. So then when he sees a butterfly collector with his net, he says, he's making butterfly stew. This is what he concludes. He sees a cop chasing a robber, and he pictures the cop eating the robber in a stew. And then a guy chasing after his bus, and he sees bus stew. And I like how it ends. It's just this guy holding a sign that says, "That's enough." Because it is. Just enough gags to make the point. And I guess another cartoonist would have just kept going, and you'd be like, okay. And this back cover is by Tom Stazer. I remember he did like lots of little spot illos in Comics Journal and the Comics Journal and Amazing Heroes. Lots of little art for Fantagraphic stuff. The effect of gamma rays on otherwise normal cartoon stars. I kind of like these. And now we have, unfortunately, the last issue. We got a nice Howard Cruse cover. Looks painted. Have you seen this missing head? I see this guy walking away with the head. So we start with a preview of the Eddy Current series by Ted McKeever, which I guess was just starting at the time. And this is kind of a prequel story. And we see this guy, Eddy Current, he clipped out and mailed in this ad in an Amazing Broccoli comic. And he's waiting for, it's been like weeks, so he's waiting for it to get there. Apparently it's a dynamic fusion suit. It would give him the masculine feeling, the ad said. Man, I like this early Ted McKeever. Here's the suit. And he's fantasizing about what he's going to do when he gets the suit. And you can tell the guy's a little unhinged. Just like, first thing I'll do when I get the suit is fly. Wait a minute. The ad didn't say anything about being able to fly. And we see him fall to the ground. Man, look how Keith Giffen that is. Mid-80s Keith Giffen. I wonder, knowing Keith Giffen, he probably ripped off Ted McKeever, but I don't know. Having these little power fantasies. He does it again. Then I'll fly off to, oh, damn. And he falls again. Everyone will love me. I'll be a hero. A real man. And then as the camera pulls back, we realize he's in an asylum, which makes sense from his narration. He's a pretty cuckoo. Yeah, it's a good comic, Eddy Current. We'll definitely show that off on a video someday here, if I live that long. Here we have another bad day for Crazy Bob. And This is by, let me get a check. I can't read that. Tom Stazer. You know, guys, I think I got that wrong. Sorry, did I do this? Oh, that was Tom Stazer. Okay, I was correct. That back cover is so much better drawn than this. That's why I thought I got it wrong. This is kind of just pretty dumb. A dumb gag. This is nice. Some more early Dennis Fujitake. Golden Samurai Chainsaw Massacre Theater presents Clayton Blind Swordsman and his seeing-eyed poi dog, Phil, versus Lone Werewolf with Kaiki and the Deadly Cart. So obviously, it's Zatoichi, a parody of Zatoichi the Blind Swordsman and Lone Wolf and Cub. I like how the Death Cart has got Safeway logo on it. And just the way he draws Kaiki, the kid, was pretty funny. He even comes with subtitles. Though I think this was just a magazine-size formatted comic. And they did this to, like, fill out the page. I wonder what he did this for originally. So we're introduced to each individually. Man, Dennis Fujitake, man. I don't think I've ever seen a bad panel by that guy. And like I'd seen him since the late 70s. He was probably a kid. Even all the covers he did for Comics Journal back in the day, he totally had it. You know, he had a style nailed. And I just can't believe how little that guy has done. And just to no acclaim. He's an amazing cartoonist, I think. He's got a mounted machine gun on the baby cart. The Kaiki is just blowing people away. So then the two of them meet. It's like a Marvel team-up, a manga team-up. But of course they have to fight first, and they totally kill each other. Wound, aerate, incise, cleave, chip. That's what the sound effects are saying. Carve, trim, hew. And they're just this total mess of body parts. So the kid looks at the dog, and it says, "Coming soon, Lone Poi Dog and Kaiki." Oh, I wish that was true. I'd pay a lot of money for that comic. Excuse me a second. Oh man, I love this comic. When I was a kid, when I first bought these, well, I guess I was a teenager. Oomba, Jungle Moon Man by Mike Bannon. And I looked up Mike Bannon too, and it's so sad how little he's done. He's done just all these crappy black and white comics from the 80s. He'd pop up in here and there. But this guy's a really good cartoonist. And the story's pretty goofy. I guess this kid was, this baby was found by a female gorilla, and she adopted it as her baby. And he seemed pretty happy. But then these aliens zap him up to their flying saucer. And they bring him to the moon. They mistook the kid for a sweet potato. Because they're like potato people. They live on the moon. So I guess the moon has all these little, all the craters are actually entranceways to the center of the moon, where there's this thriving civilization. His name, Oomba, actually is the moonish word for unpotato. But it's also their word for everything else. They just walk around going, Oomba, Oomba, Oomba. Of course, they had to place a high value on intonation to be understood. They, as a child, they give him, they make sure he was well supplied with TV sets and cigarettes. And he grows up, and eventually he realizes he wants to go back to Earth. And he has a tearful farewell with his parents, even though they're just watching TV when he says bye. And he makes it back to Earth. I like this how he says, Earth, more specifically Eastern Iowa, since I live there. I thought it would make this trip easier to write. So it's like a narrator is the cartoonist. But I mean, look how much he packs on this page. So much story, so many panels. And it's just really nice, crisp inking. Just kind of fun cartooning. So Umba gets a crappy job at a department store. And he meets this woman. I'm sorry, he doesn't meet her. I mean, she's a customer. And she says, could you direct me to the surgical nose plugs? And he says, I am unworthy. I must seek higher knowledge. So he makes this pile of the disposable diapers that he was stocking, and he lights them on fire. And he chants, from the flames of ignorance, I call upon you, O great Muno, to impart your wisdom in this matter. And the great Muno says, if there is wisdom that you seek, young toad, you must turn your vision inward. And so his eyeballs turn back in his head, and he enters a higher level of consciousness. And I love these next two pages. This is so much fun, this cartooning. Cosmic mooniness. So he attains this higher state. And he sees the mountain of insight, and he attempts to climb it. Well, he does climb it. The whole time he's thinking surgical nose plugs. I love this. It says, inwardly, Umba questions the panel arrangement of this page, but shimmies upward until he finds another eccentric panel arrangement. Before we get into this page, I did want to mention, I love this very like Steve Ditko like trippiness going on here with the planets inside of his hair. I just really like his stubble too. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of speckling. So it says, thoughts of nose plugs vanish as the jumbled panels and unrelenting third-person narration close in on the confused moon man. Umba girds himself for a series of tight close-ups. They're coming. I can feel it in my spleen. He gets all these intense close-ups. And when he's on his own chin, he's saying, I should shave more. So the secrets of the universe have been revealed. And Umba's sitting there in a daze saying, 3 tiers per page, 2 panels per tier, logical plotting, strong punchline. And the woman's there, excuse me, the surgical nose plugs. And the great Muno says, ask pharmacy. Maybe next time. But this is just, oh man, all of this craziness going on. I love the whole breaking the fourth wall business. So apparently there's a full-length Umba comic. I never knew this. It was by a really dinky comic company in the 80s. They were almost like one step above a mini comic publisher. But every now and then they'd put out a normal-sized comic with colored covers, Strawberry Jam Comics. And man, I've never seen it, but I saw it on the internet today. I want it really bad after rereading this. I forgot how groovy this gets. These last 2 pages, these are great. Really fun stuff. Oh man, it's my main man, B. Claban. Great interview with B. Claban. We find out he's a total crusty curmudgeon, even at this age. Because this is 87, so he's not that old. And we get to see some great cartoons by him. Here's a self-portrait of himself. And it's a great interview. He really gets into it. I like how he just totally isn't afraid to ruffle feathers. He's just like, yeah, go Garfield and Kathy. Those comics suck. They look like shit. This is nice. Some stuff from B. Claban's sketchbooks, which I don't know if has ever been reprinted anywhere else. Man, I really want them to come out with just a giant hardcover of all of B. Claban's cartoons. I mean, it might have to be 2 or 3. He was doing it for quite a while. I guess at this point he had quit magazine cartooning. and was just going to focus on his books and landscape painting. So he was kind of semi-retired at this point in the mid to late 80s. The interviewer, it's Heidi McDonald, by the way. She did tons of stuff in fandom. She actually says, "You seem to be a bit cranky." This one's Dave Loses His Job by Scott Nickel. And this is weird. This is not comic at all. This is just kind of horrible. This kind of upper middle class guy one day gets laid off. And so the next day he's looking through all the papers, diligently looking for new jobs. And the whole time the TV's playing because he's in the living room. And days go by. Nothing. There's no jobs out there. I should point out, because it's 1987, full on into Reaganomics. And the TV says, unemployment reached a record low today. The economy is booming. Because that was the weird thing during the Reagan years, the economy was great if you were like 1% of the population. It was just all this like money flowing upwards. But that's when like all these families had to have, a lot of women went to work, mothers, because you just couldn't afford to live on one salary anymore. It just got really hard to be the lower brackets of income. And I hope you don't think I'm being political. I'm just telling you what it was like. It was literally like that. Unemployment was terrible. So then after a while, he just degenerates. He can't get a job. There's nothing out there. So he just starts watching TV. Stops looking for work. Starts drinking beer. Just spends all day sitting in the chair in his bathrobe. Letting his face grow out. And he has a little daydream of getting his job back, getting a raise, being totally validated. But it's just a dream. And we see day 58, day 75, day 94, and he's just shrinking into his chair as all these stupid sitcoms are playing on the TV. I like this too. The TV just gets bigger and bigger, and it's almost like looming over him by the last panel. And the whole time his wife is just in the other room saying, Dave, Dave, Dave. This is just an ad, but for years I wanted to find this comic. It's because it says copyright Nerve Publications. This is an advertisement for Nerve number 8. But whoever this artist is, I love this. I always did. When I was a kid, I was like, who is this? Even with the internet, I'm sure I could find out. But it looks like Jack Kirby and Gary Panter jamming. It looks like really fun, this art. So if anybody has Nerve number 8 out there, send me some information in the comments below. And here we have Scott Saavedra, who did tons of black and white stuff in the 80s. And he's doing a parody of Calvin and Hobbes, but it's Little Dracula and Hell Dog. And it's just a very typical Calvin and Hobbes type joke. What is it? His comic, I think, was it's Science with Dr. Radium. I think that was Scott Saavedra. Did lots of stuff for slave labor graphics. And that's it for Splat, guys, unfortunately. I really like this anthology. I just like the whole idea that it was, even the interviews with all these cartoonists. It was just trying to be like a humor magazine. But getting all these great cartoonists from all spheres of the comic book world, They kind of got them from all over. And I would have been really curious if the comic continued to see who else they would have had in these pages. But I hope you enjoyed looking at it. There's definitely a lot of good stuff in these. Obviously, like any anthology, there's some crap too. But I think it's got a pretty good hit ratio of good stuff to bad stuff. And I'm sure if you do find these, they're going to be super cheap. They shouldn't be more than 50 cents. But then again, these kind of little independent comics, they have such small print runs. Not that anyone wants them, but you just can't find them. They're just gone. They've the 1,000 copies that sold have like ended up in recycle bins or something. But hopefully you'll find them. Definitely worth more than 50 cents, that's for sure. But I guess that's it for today's video, and thanks for watching once again. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.